Watch Donald Trump dismantle Gavin Newsom's presidential ambitions in 87 minutes. In poker, that is called a tell. In politics, that is fear. You know what they call him in Sacramento? The French laundry governor? I didn't make it up. His own people call him that. I just made it famous. Those are the words of President Donald Trump, spoken on a debate stage in Atlanta, Georgia, 14 seconds before Gavin Newsom's 2028 presidential ambitions ended on national television. 800 people were in the room. Half of them cheered. Half of them went silent. Sean Hannity stood behind the moderator's desk. He did not interrupt. He didn't need to. What happened over the following 87 minutes of live television was the most brutal political destruction since Trump called Jeb Bush low energy in 2015. He ended a political dynasty with 2 words. This time, it took 6. The French laundry governor, and everything that followed. If you have been waiting for Donald Trump to do to Gavin Newsom what he did to Hillary Clinton, what he did to Jeb Bush, what he did to every politician who has ever stepped on a stage next to him, hit that like button right now, because you are about to watch the master class. The debate had been in the works for 4 months. Governor Gavin Newsom had been building toward 2028 since the day he debated Ron DeSantis on Fox News in November of 2023. That 90-minute performance was moderated by Sean Hannity in front of a national audience. It had established Newsom as the frontrunner for the next Democratic presidential nomination. Every major newspaper in the country had said so. Newsom believed it. His donors believed it. His wife Jennifer believed it. Then Donald Trump called him out. Newsom wants to be president. Trump posted on Truth Social in the spring of 2026. He can even run California. The place is a disaster. Unhoused people everywhere. Businesses leaving. A train that costs $135 billion and goes to Bakersfield. Bakersfield? I'll debate him anywhere, anytime. He won't show up. He never shows up. He just stands around looking handsome and doing nothing. Gavin, the do-nothing governor. Newsom responded within the hour. Name the date, Mr. President. I'll be there. The date was set. Thursday evening, 9:00 p.m. Eastern. Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta. Fox News broadcast. Simulcast on CNN and C-SPAN. Moderator Sean Hannity had moderated Newsom once before. He knew exactly how the governor operated under pressure. 800 audience members were split evenly. 400 Republican tickets. 400 Democratic tickets. They were distributed by random lottery through the Georgia Secretary of State's office. No plants, no pre-screening, just Americans. The VIP section on the right side of the stage held Vice President J.D. Vance. His wife Usha sat in the front row. Behind them sat Senator Lindsey Graham, Vivek Ramaswamy, Kari Lake. The VIP section on the left held Jennifer Siebel Newsom, Senator Alex Padilla of California, retired Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Pelosi had come out of retirement for this. She had told Padilla on the flight from San Francisco, "If anyone can handle Trump on a stage, it's Gavin. He's the best debater in the party." She was about to find out. At 9:01 p.m. Eastern Time, Sean Hannity walked to the moderator's podium. "Good evening, America. Welcome to the most anticipated political event of the year. Tonight is the President of the United States versus the Governor of California. 90 minutes. 6 topics. No teleprompters. Let's go." Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom stood on the same stage. Sean Hannity at the podium. 800 Americans in the room. 90 minutes on the clock. And the first topic is about to light a fire that Newsom cannot put out. Comment French laundry below, because those 2 words are about to become the most famous dinner reservation in American history. Hannity. Topic 1. The California economy. Governor Newsom, you have 2 minutes. How do you defend your state's economic record? Gavin Newsom was good at this. He had done it 100 times. He straightened his tie. The same perfect Windsor knot. The same tailored suit. He had the same practiced confidence. It had carried him through every interview and debate of his political life. He looked directly at the camera. Not at Trump. At America. Thank you, Sean. Let me start with the facts. Because facts seem to be in short supply. On this stage tonight, California has the 5th largest economy in the world. Not the country. The world. We passed the United Kingdom. We produce more technology, more agriculture, more entertainment, and more innovation than any state in this nation. Our GDP growth has outpaced the national average in 4 of the last 6 years. The president likes to talk about businesses leaving California. Let me give you one number. 21,000 new businesses were registered in California in the last fiscal year. 21,000. That's more than Texas and Florida combined. And let me be direct about something. The man standing across from me added $7.8 trillion to the national debt during his first term. $7.8 trillion. He signed the largest single spending bill in American history, the CARES Act, with virtually no oversight. He gave $2 trillion in tax cuts to corporations and the wealthiest Americans, while working families in my state, and every state, were struggling to pay rent. So before President Trump lectures California about fiscal responsibility, maybe he should look at his own balance sheet, because his balance sheet has a $7.8 trillion hole in it. The Democratic side of the audience erupted. 400 people stood and cheered. Padilla clapped. Jennifer Newsom nodded. Nancy Pelosi was seated in the 3rd row. She did something she almost never did in public. She smiled. Hannity, Mr. President, 2 minutes. Donald Trump did not look at his notes. He did not have notes. He never had notes. He looked at Newsom the way a man looks at a menu he has already decided on. Thank you, Sean. Very nice. Very handsome speech, Gavin. Very polished. You should be in the movies. Actually, I think your wife makes movies, doesn't she? Talented family. Beautiful. But let me tell you about the California economy that the governor is so proud of. Highest cost of living in the United States of America. Not the world. We'll get to the world in a minute. The United States, $26,000 more per year for a middle-class family compared to the national average. I didn't make that up. That is from the Transparency Foundation. Look it up. $26,000. That's a car, Gavin. Your people are paying an extra car every year just to live in your state. Electricity. Double the national average. 32 cents a kilowatt hour. The national average is 17. Almost double. People are paying twice as much to turn on the lights. In California, where the sun shines every day, how do you pay twice the national average for electricity? In a state where the sun shines 300 days a year. Explain that to me, Gavin. Actually, don't explain it. I know the answer. Bad management, terrible management, the worst. And the businesses. Oh, the businesses. Gavin says 21,000 new businesses. That's nice. Very nice number. Let me give you another number. Tesla is gone. Moved to Texas. Oracle is gone. Hewlett-Packard is gone. Charles Schwab is gone. Population of California dropped for the first time in the history of the state. First time ever. People are leaving, not coming, leaving, they re-leaving your beautiful state, Gavin. Because they can't afford to live there. And they re-going to Texas. And they re-going to Florida. And they re-going to Tennessee. And they re-voting Republican when they get there. By the way, he paused, leaned into the microphone, But that is the economy. Let us talk about the real stuff. Let us talk about the 37 billion. Trump just rattled off 5 companies that left California, the highest cost of living in America, and double the national electricity rates, in 90 seconds, from memory, without a single note. And he hasn't even started on homelessness yet. Subscribe right now, because what he says next about $37 billion is going to make the California economy look like the good news. Hannity. Topic 2. Homelessness. Mr. President, you have the floor. Thank you, Sean. So, homelessness. This is a big one. This might be the biggest one. Because the governor over there, and I respect him, I really do. He's a good-looking guy. Very tall, great hair. I'll give him that. The governor declared himself the homeless czar of California in 2019. Those are his words, not mine. Homeless czar. Very Russian-sounding, but okay. Since 2019, the state of California has spent approximately $37 billion on homelessness. $37 billion. That's more than the GDP of Iceland. I looked it up. Iceland. Beautiful country. Great people. No homeless problem. California spent $37 billion, and people are still sleeping on the sidewalk in downtown Los Angeles. And here's the best part. A March 2025 audit by a firm called Alvarez & Marsal, very respected firm, smart people, found that the homeless services in LA were, quote, disjointed and lacked adequate data systems and financial controls. That means they don't know where the money went, $37 billion. And they don't know where it went. And it gets better. Up to $12.6 billion, billion with a B, may have gone to support people who didn't originally live in California. They came from somewhere else to California to be homeless, because California is so nice to homeless people that they re-importing them. You re-running a homeless magnet, Gavin. Congratulations. Most expensive magnet in history. The Republican side of the audience was on its feet. Laughter. Cheers. Someone shouted, "Tell him, Mr. President." Trump pointed at the voice and winked. Hannity. Governor Newsom. Response. Newsom was ready for this one. He had rehearsed it. Mr. President, you want to talk about homelessness. Let's talk about homelessness. In 2025, California's unsheltered homelessness dropped 9%, the largest drop in 15 years, while the nation under your administration saw an 18% increase. We are going down. The country is going up. Those are federal numbers, HUD numbers, your own government's numbers. We created 16,000 homes through HomeKey. We invested $5 billion through the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program. We cleared 23,000 individuals from encampments through our Encampment Resolution Fund. These are results. Real results. Measured results. And let me say this directly. It is very easy to stand on a debate stage and say $37 billion. It is much harder to actually do something about a crisis that has been 50 years in the making, that spans Republican and Democratic administrations, and that every state in this country is dealing with, including the red states that pretend they don't have it. The Democratic side applauded. Newsom straightened his shoulders. For a moment, he looked like the man who had debated DeSantis and walked away, believing he had won. Trump waited for the applause to die. Then he said casually, as if it had just occurred to him, 9%. That's very nice. Impressive. But Gavin, if I spend $37 billion and homelessness goes down 9%, that means I spent $4 billion per percentage point, $4 billion a point. That's the most expensive percentage point in the history of mathematics. I'm a businessman. If one of my project managers came to me and said, "Boss, I spent $37 billion and I got a 9% improvement. I'd fire him immediately. No severance. Out. Gone. Bye-bye. He turned to the audience. Am I wrong? Any business owners here? Would you keep that manager? Show of hands? Hands went up across the Republican section. A few went up on the Democratic side. Hannity suppressed a smile. See, even some of your people agree. Thank you. Very honest. Brave of you. $4 billion per percentage point. Trump just did the math on Gavin Newsom's homeless spending in real time on national television. And the governor had no comeback. Comment 37 billion below. Because that number just became the most expensive failure in the history of American government. Hannity glanced at his notes. The next topic was supposed to be wildfires, but Trump had other plans. Trump always had other plans. Sean, if I may. Before we move to fires, I want to talk about something related. Because it's about money. And Governor Newsom loves spending money. He's very talented at it, maybe the most talented spender in the history of government. And I mean that as a compliment, Gavin. Nobody spends money like you. The California high-speed rail. Does everybody know about this? The train. The famous train. The most expensive train in the history of the world. They announced it in 2008. Budget is $33 billion. Reasonable. Los Angeles to San Francisco. 2 hours and 40 minutes. Beautiful. Fantastic idea. That was 2008. 18 years ago. 18 years. And what have they built? 171 miles of track in the Central Valley. Merced to Bakersfield. Merced. Bakersfield. He paused for effect. The comedic timing was perfect. Has anybody in this room ever been to Merced? Raise your hand if you've been to Merced. No hands went up. Nobody. Nobody's ever been to Merced. I'm sure it's a lovely town, beautiful people, great community, but nobody's taking a $135 billion bullet train to get there. And the cost. The cost is the real story. $33 billion in 2008. The latest estimate, and this changes every 6 months. It only goes up. The latest estimate is between $128 and $135 billion. That is a 400% increase. If I built a building and came back to my investors and said, good news, it's only going to cost 4 times what I promised, they would fire me. They would sue me. They would never speak to me again. And what does the governor say? He says, we need to keep investing. Investing. That's what he calls it. $15.7 billion spent so far. Not 1 mile of operational track. Not one passenger has ridden this train. Not one person has gotten on a train in Merced and gotten off in Bakersfield. Because the train doesn't work. It doesn't exist. It's a concept. A very expensive concept. He turned to Newsom. Gavin, you want me to give you $40 billion for fire recovery before you spend another dollar of federal money? Could you maybe finish the train? Could you build a train that actually moves before you ask me for more? Is that too much to ask? Newsom. Mr. President, the high-speed rail project is, Trump, is the biggest boondoggle in the history of American infrastructure. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. The only people who don't know it are the people who keep getting paid to not finish it. And that is a lot of people, Gavin. That is a lot of people. The Republican audience was laughing now. Not cruel laughter. Amusement. Trump was doing what Trump always did. Making government failure sound like a comedy routine. And the funniest part was that every number he cited was real. $135 billion for a train from Merced to Bakersfield. 18 years. Not one passenger. Nobody's ever been to Merced. If that line just made you spit out your coffee, share this video right now. Send it to one person. Because when Trump gets to the wildfires, the jokes stop. And the facts start hitting even harder. Hannity. Topic 3. The Los Angeles wildfires and federal disaster aid. Governor Newsom, 2 minutes. This was Newsom's strongest ground. Moral authority. Human suffering. Children displaced. Homes burned. Thank you, Sean. In January of 2025, the Los Angeles area experienced the most devastating wildfires in the history of Southern California. Over $150 billion in damage. Thousands of families displaced. Entire neighborhoods like Pacific Palisades and Altadena were gone. Generations of memories, gone. I asked the federal government for disaster aid. I asked this president. I went to Washington. I stood on the tarmac at LAX when Air Force One landed, and I shook this man's hand because the people of Los Angeles needed help, not politics. 9 months later, not $1 of long-term federal aid, not $1. Mr. President, you posted on Truth Social that California should change its water policy, then its immigration policy, then its voter ID laws. You attached conditions to disaster relief. You held the suffering of American families hostage to your political agenda. 170,000 Californians are displaced tonight, right now. Some of them are in FEMA trailers. Some of them are in shelters. Some of them are sleeping in their cars. And the President of the United States is standing on this stage 400 miles from their suffering, making jokes about Bakersfield. The Democratic audience was silent. Not cheering, just silent. Reverent silent. Karen Bass in the VIP section wiped her eye. Jennifer Newsom reached over and squeezed Padilla's arm. For 20 seconds, Gavin Newsom looked like a man who deserved to be president. Trump let him have the moment. He had learned over 40 years of negotiation and 10 years of politics. The most powerful thing you can do after your opponent lands a good punch is let the crowd feel it, and then take it away. That was a very good speech, Gavin. Very moving. Truly. I almost felt something. But let me ask you a question. And I want you to answer it honestly. Because the families you just talked about, the ones in the trailers, the ones in the shelters, they deserve an honest answer. On November 6, 2020, while the people of California were locked in their homes by your executive order, while their businesses were closed by your mandate, while their children couldn't go to school because of your policy, you sat down for dinner at the French Laundry restaurant in Napa Valley, $350 a person, not including wine. The wine is extra. Very expensive wine. I'm sure. You were sitting next to Dustin Corcoran, CEO of the California Medical Association. No masks, no social distancing. Indoors, even though you told the press it was outdoors. And then photographs proved it was indoors. Your own newspaper, the Sacramento Bee, said, quote, "Nothing will launder the stain of stupidity from his reputation." That's your paper, Gavin, not Fox News. The Sacramento Bee, California's paper. And while you were eating your amuse-bouche with lobbyists, your children were attending private school in Sacramento, in person. Private school, while every other kid in California was staring at a laptop on a kitchen table. He turned to the audience on both sides. That's the man asking me for $40 billion, the French Laundry governor. The man who locked you down and then went out to dinner. The man who closed your schools and sent his kids to private school. The man who told you to stay home and then drove to Napa Valley for the lobbyist special, and now he stands up here and talks about the people in the trailers. Gavin, those people were in their homes when you were at the French Laundry. They weren't in trailers yet. They were home, and you locked them in. The Republican audience erupted. The Democratic audience was silent. Sean Hannity looked at Newsom. "Governor, you have 60 seconds to respond." Newsom: "Mr. President, I've addressed the French Laundry dinner publicly many times. I called it a bad mistake. I owned it. Trump: a bad mistake. $350. Lobbyists: no mask. While Grandma couldn't go to Thanksgiving. A bad mistake. That is a generous way to describe it, Gavin. Most people would use a different word. He locked you down and then went out to dinner. That is the sentence that will play on every screen in America for the next 30 days. If you want to see what Trump does next, and it involves Gavin Newsom's best friend's wife, share this video right now. Send it to one person, because the next 15 minutes are going to make the French Laundry look like an appetizer. Hannity. Topic 4. Immigration and border security. Mr. President, Hannity. Topic 4. Immigration and border policy. Governor Newsom. Minutes. Newsom straightened. This was his moral ground. Sean, let me be clear about what this administration has done to California. In June of 2025, the President of the United States deployed National Guard troops and United States Marines to the streets of Los Angeles. Without my permission, without the state's consent, without a formal request from any California law enforcement agency, he federalized our National Guard, the same guard that was supposed to be helping with fire recovery, stopping substances at the border, preventing terrorism. He took them from those missions and sent them to rouse people from their homes during immigration raids. Raids that targeted families, not cartels. I filed a federal lawsuit, Newsom versus Trump, challenging the legality of that deployment, because in the United States of America, we do not send soldiers into American cities to terrorize families. We are better than that. Or at least, we used to be. And let me say this directly to the families watching tonight. The immigrant families in California. Who pick the food that feeds this nation? Who clean the hotels? Who build the houses? Who start the businesses? You are welcome in California. You have always been welcome. And as long as I am governor, you always will be. Democratic audience on their feet, Padilla shouting, Karen Bass wiping her eyes. Hannity, Mr. President, response. Trump leaned back, relaxed. This was his topic. Very nice, Gavin. Touching. Beautiful speech. Let me give you some numbers. Because the governor doesn't like numbers. He likes speeches. I like numbers. Under Gavin Newsom's sanctuary state policies, California has released, not deported, released thousands of unauthorized migrants who had committed crimes, not people who came here looking for a better life. Individuals penalized for assault, trafficking, and worse, released back into California communities by his policy. Substances. 60,000 Americans lost their lives to substance crises last year. 60,000. More than the entire Vietnam War. And where do the substances come in? The southern border. And which state has the longest border with Mexico? California. And which governor has done everything possible to prevent federal agents from enforcing immigration law at that border? Gavin, the French Laundry governor. He spent $134 million taxpayer dollars fighting my National Guard deployment, $134 million to sue the federal government for trying to enforce the law. That's more than he spent on fire prevention in the last 3 fiscal years combined. Think about that. He'd rather spend money suing me than protecting his people from fires. He pointed at Newsom. And let me ask you something, Gavin. The National Guard troops I sent to L.A., the ones you sued to remove, They arrested 14 members of a transnational gang operating in East Los Angeles, 14 gang members. MS-13 affiliates. Your sanctuary policies had prevented local law enforcement from cooperating to remove them. My National Guard removed them in 9 days. You sued me to stop that. You sued me to keep gang members in Los Angeles. Explain that to the families in East LA, Gavin. Explain it to their children. Republican audience erupted. Someone shouted, "Build the wall." Trump pointed and smiled. We did, actually. We built 452 miles, more than anyone else. And then they stopped it. But we rebuilding again. Trump just told Gavin Newsom that he spent more money suing the federal government than preventing fires, and that his sanctuary policies kept gang members in Los Angeles until the National Guard removed them in 9 days. Comment sanctuary below. Because Gavin Newsom just got asked a question he cannot answer in front of 90 million Americans. Hannity looked at both podiums. The clock showed 28 minutes remaining. Topic 5. Personal character and leadership. The room tightened. Everyone knew this was the one. Governor Newsom, you first. 2 minutes on why the American people should trust your character. Newsom stood a little taller. He had prepared for this. Sean, thank you. I've been in public service for over 20 years. I've made mistakes. I've owned every one of them publicly. On the record, I believe that's what leadership looks like. Not perfection, but accountability. The man standing across from me is a penalized individual. He has been found liable for abuse in a civil court. He has been impeached twice by the United States House of Representatives. He attempted to overturn a free and fair election. He sent a mob to the United States Capitol, and he is asking the American people to judge my character. Mr. President, I have never been indicted. I have never been convicted. I have never been impeached. I have never sent anyone to storm the Capitol. If character is the topic tonight, I will take my record against yours any day of the week, and twice on Sunday. The Democratic side exploded. Standing ovation. Padilla on his feet. Pelosi clapping slowly and deliberately, the way she clapped at the State of the Union. Jennifer Newsom stood. Karen Bass stood for 45 seconds. It felt like Newsom had won the debate. His voice had been steady. His eyes had been clear. Every fact he cited was accurate. Every charge he leveled was true. The penalty, the civil verdict, the impeachments, the Capitol, all of it. True. In the VIP section, Senator Alex Padilla leaned toward Mayor Karen Bass. He's back. That is the Gavin who beat DeSantis. Bass nodded, but she was watching Trump's face. And Trump's face was smiling, not a nervous smile, not a political smile, the smile of a man who has been playing poker for 50 years and just watched his opponent go all in with a pair of sevens. Trump let it go. He let the applause peak. He let it hang. And then, just as it began to fade, he leaned into his microphone. He spoke in the quietest voice he had used all evening. Gavin. Can I call you Gavin? I've always called you Gavin. Some people call you other things. But I'll use Gavin out of respect for the office of governor. You just said you've owned every mistake publicly. On the record. So let me ask you about one. 2007. You were mayor of San Francisco. A young mayor. Good-looking. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You're a handsome man. Everybody says so. Great hair. The hair alone could be governor. Your campaign manager. Your best friend. Your closest ally. The man who put you in the mayor's office was a man named Alex Turk. Alex ran everything for you. Scheduling, strategy, fundraising, everything. Alex was your guy. Alex had a wife. Her name was Ruby Rippy Gibney. And you, the mayor of San Francisco, the man Alex trusted with his career, You slept with her. The room went dead silent. Alex found out. Alex resigned. Trump paused. He looked directly at Newsom. You said, everything you've heard and read is true. 6 words. Honest, brave, also bad. Because what the American people heard and read was that the governor of California slept with his best friend's wife, his campaign manager's wife, the man who got him elected, and you just stood up here and said, you've owned every mistake. Have you owned that one, Gavin? Have you called Alex lately? Does he take your calls? Gavin Newsom's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the sides of the podium. Mr. President, that was 20 years ago. Ivy apologized. 20 years. You're right. 20 years. So, let me move to something more recent. Let me move to last year. Trump just stood on a debate stage. He told 800 Americans and 90 million television viewers that Gavin Newsom slept with his best friend's wife. And then he said, let me move to something more recent. Hit that like button one more time, because the thing that happened last year is even worse. November 2025. Last year, your chief of staff, Dana Williamson, she ran your office for 2 years, Gavin. 2 years. She sat in the room next to yours. She attended every meeting. She signed off on every decision. Last November, Dana Williamson was indicted by a federal grand jury on 23 counts. 23. Bank fraud, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Those are real charges, Gavin. Federal charges, the kind that come with 20 years. And what did they find? $225,000 siphoned from a dormant campaign account. A $15,000 Chanel bag charged as a business expense. $170,000 for a birthday trip to Mexico. A birthday trip to Mexico while your state had a $12 billion budget shortfall. And here's my favorite part, Gavin. My favorite. Because this is the part the media didn't cover enough. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, approached Dana Williamson in 2024 and asked her to cooperate. They asked her to help them investigate you. Gavin, the FBI wanted your own chief of staff to flip on you. Her lawyer said she had no information to give them. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she did. But the FBI asked. They asked. Gavin, that's on the record. Politico reported it. Look it up. And when she finally left your office, after you knew she was under federal investigation, after you knew the FBI had approached her, you put out a statement thanking her for her, quote, insight, tenacity, and big heart. Her big heart, Gavin. 23 federal counts. Big heart. He turned to the audience. And this is the man who wants to be President of the United States in 2028. His best friend's wife. His chief of staff under federal indictment. His state spending $37 billion on homelessness and can find where it went. A train that costs $135 billion and goes to Bakersfield. This isn't a presidential candidate, folks. This is a disaster. A beautiful, handsome, well-dressed disaster. But a disaster. Senator Alex Padilla in the VIP section leaned over to Nancy Pelosi and whispered something. Pelosi did not respond. She was sitting very still. Her hands were folded in her lap. She had seen this before. She had seen Trump do this to other people. She had never expected to watch it happen to the man she had told Padilla could handle Trump on a stage. She was wrong. A beautiful, handsome, well-dressed disaster. Donald Trump just said that on live national television about the man who wants to be the next Democratic nominee for president, and Gavin Newsom is still standing at that podium with no answer for the best friend's wife, no answer for the 2-3 count chief of staff, and no answer for $37 billion on the sidewalk. Comment French Laundry Governor below, because that nickname just became permanent. Hannity looked at the clock. 12 minutes remaining. Topic 6. Closing statements. Mr. President, you requested to go last. Governor Newsom, you have 3 minutes. Newsom's closing was strong. He was a professional. Even battered, even bloodied, he could deliver a speech. He talked about the California dream. He talked about the future. He talked about innovation. He talked about the children of immigrants who built Silicon Valley and the farm workers who feed the nation. He quoted Bobby Kennedy. He quoted Martin Luther King Jr. He talked about hope. Mr. President, you have spent the last 78 minutes telling the American people everything that is wrong with California. And some of it is true. I've made mistakes. I've said so tonight. I said so before tonight. I'll say so after tonight. But you did not mention one thing. You did not mention that California leads the nation in clean energy jobs. You did not mention that we have the highest rate of venture capital investment in the world. You did not mention that we produce 60% of America's fruits and vegetables. You did not mention that our universities like UC Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, and Caltech drive more innovation per square mile than any place on Earth. You talked about people leaving California. You did not talk about the people staying. The 39 million people who wake up every morning in the most beautiful, diverse, innovative state in this union and go to work. I am not a perfect governor. No one is. But I am a governor who shows up, who fights, who does not quit. And I will keep fighting for those 39 million people long after tonight's debate is forgotten. It was a beautiful speech. If you closed your eyes and just listened to the words, it was the speech of a man who should be president. But the audience had not closed their eyes. They had spent the last 78 minutes watching Donald Trump systematically dismantle every pillar Gavin Newsom had built his career on. The speech landed on a foundation that was no longer there. The Democratic side applauded. It was polite. It was respectful. It was not the standing ovation from Topic 5. It was the applause of people who knew their man had lost, and were clapping because it was the decent thing to do. Hannity, Mr. President. 3 minutes. Closing statement. Trump did not start with a speech. He started with a question. Gavin, before I close, I want to ask you one thing. Not a gotcha. Not a trick question. A real question. The kind of question a board of directors would ask a CEO at an annual review. In those 7 years, you have spent $37 billion on homelessness. Homelessness went down 9%, $4 billion a percentage point. That was supposed to cost $33 billion and now costs $135 billion. No operational tracks. 16 years. Nothing moves. Your chief of staff was indicted on 23 counts of federal fraud. Your state has lost more residents than any state in American history. Your cost of living is the highest in the country. Your electricity rates are double the national average. A minimum wage carve-out appeared to benefit Panera Bread, whose largest franchisee in California, a man named Greg Flynn, is your longtime donor and personal friend. Panera Gate. Nobody even talks about that one anymore, because there's too many other things to talk about. 7 state agencies under your administration have been designated high risk for waste, fraud, abuse, or severe mismanagement. 7, not 1. 7. And the people of Los Angeles, the people you say you care about so deeply, lost their homes in January and still haven't received long-term federal aid, in part because the federal government cannot verify that the money they send to California will be spent on the people it's supposed to help, because the last $37 billion was WSN. Here's my question, Gavin, and I want an honest answer, not a politician answer, an honest answer. The kind of answer a CEO gives to a board that is about to fire him. He paused. The Georgia World Congress Center was silent. 800 people. Not one sound. If you ran California like a business. If the taxpayers were shareholders, and the homeless were customers, and the auditors were the board of directors, would you still have a job? Gavin Newsom stood at his podium. His hands were at his sides. His jaw was set. His eyes were fixed on a point somewhere above the audience. The way a man's eyes fix on a point when he is trying very hard not to show what he is feeling on national television. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seconds of silence on live national television. Hannity gently. Governor Newsom? Newsom leaned into his microphone. Mr. President, I have served the people of California for 20 years. I am proud of. Trump. That's a politician answer, Gavin. I asked for an honest one. Would you still have a job? Yes or no? Newsom. The people of California will decide that. Trump. They already have. Gavin. They already have. Your approval rating is underwater in your own state. That's not me talking. That's the polls. Your own people. I rest my case. He looked at Hannity. Sean, I think we were done here. 11 seconds. 11 seconds of silence on live national television. Donald Trump asked Gavin Newsom, the man who wants to be the next president of the United States, whether he would still have a job if he ran California like a business. And for 11 seconds, the governor of the fifth largest economy in the world could not answer yes. Turn on notifications right now, because the aftermath of this debate is going to reshape the 2028 presidential race before it even starts. Hannity. That concludes tonight's debate. I want to thank both participants. Mr. President, Governor Newsom. Thank you. Trump walked to center stage. He extended his hand toward Newsom. Newsom shook it. The handshake lasted 3 seconds. Trump held Newsom's shoulder with his left hand. The power grip. The one he used on foreign leaders when he wanted the photograph to tell a story. The photograph told a story. Then Trump walked to the right side of the stage. Where Vance and Usha were standing, he pointed at Vance and said loud enough for the microphones, J.D. Vance. You did fine, sir. Trump. Fine. Just fine. Tough crowd. The Republican audience laughed. On the left side of the stage, Gavin Newsom walked toward his wife. Jennifer Siebel Newsom met him at the bottom of the steps. She hugged him. She held the hug for 6 seconds. 2 seconds longer than a normal hug, which is the length of time a wife holds on when she knows her husband just lost something he cannot get back. Senator Alex Padilla stood behind them. He did not hug Newsom. He shook his hand. One shake. Brief. Nancy Pelosi was already in the hallway. She had left her seat during Newsom's closing statement. She was walking toward the motorcade exit. A reporter from Politico caught her in the corridor. Madam Speaker, your reaction to tonight's debate? Pelosi did not stop walking. She said 4 words. No comment at this time. It was the most devastating 4-word review Gavin Newsom would receive that night. Nancy Pelosi had spent 40 years in Washington. She had survived more political battles than most people could name. She knew when a fight was lost. She knew when to leave the room. And she knew, the way a woman who has held power for 4 decades knows, that the worst thing you can do for a wounded ally is stand next to the wound on camera. So she walked. She walked to the motorcade. She got in. She called her daughter Alexandra from the back seat. How bad was it, Mom? He lost comprehensively. The 11 seconds will be the only thing anyone remembers. What do? We find someone else. She hung up. The motorcade pulled away from the Georgia World Congress Center. The Atlanta skyline glowed orange against the night sky. Pelosi looked out the window. She thought about 2028, and all the plans that had been built on the assumption that Gavin Newsom could handle Donald Trump on a stage. Somewhere in a hotel room at the Omni Atlanta at CNN Center, at 1147 that evening, Gavin Newsom sat on the edge of the bed, with his tie loosened and his jacket on the floor. Jennifer was in the bathroom. The television was on, muted, showing Fox News, replaying the 11 seconds of silence on a loop. His phone had rung 3 times since the debate ended. He had answered 2 calls. The first was from his chief of staff, who told him that the overnight tracking polls were not great. The second was from his biggest donor in San Francisco, who told him to take some time before making any decisions about 2028. Take some time is what donors say when they are withdrawing their money, but are too polite to say it while you are sitting in a hotel room at midnight with your tie on the floor. Jennifer came out of the bathroom. She sat next to him. How bad is it? Pelosi left during my closing. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Did she say anything? No comment at this time. Jennifer put her hand on his knee. We'll figure it out. But they both knew. The way 2 people who have been married for a long time and have survived one political crisis after another know that some things cannot be figured out. Some things are just true. And the truest thing that had happened that night was 11 seconds of silence on a stage in Atlanta, when a businessman from New York had asked a politician from California whether he would still have a job, and the politician could not say yes. Somewhere in the hold room backstage at the Georgia World Congress Center at 10:22 p.m., Donald Trump ate a cheeseburger and watched the Fox News post-debate panel with the sound off. Hannity was on screen gesturing. The chyron read, "Trump dominates Newsom in historic debate." Susie Wiles walked in with her iPad. Mr. President, initial numbers. Fox had 14.6 million live viewers. CNN had 5.1. Total across all platforms approximately 22 million. It's the most watched non-presidential debate in American television history. Trump took a bite of the cheeseburger. More than Newsom DeSantis? Triple. Good. What about the clip? The 11 seconds. 41 million views in the first hour on X. Trending #1 worldwide. Trump nodded. He took another bite. Call the governor's office tomorrow morning. Tell them I am open to discussing fire aid, but I want a full independent audit of the $37 billion first. GAO audit. Complete transparency. Every dollar accounted for before I sign anything. Wiles wrote it down. He'll call it extortion. Trump smiled. The smile that meant he had already thought 3 moves ahead of everyone in the room. He can call it whatever he wants. I call it due diligence. Tell him the offer is on the table. But tell Fox first. Somewhere in a FEMA trailer in Pacific Palisades at 8:15 that evening, Pacific time, a 6-7-year-old retired school teacher named Margaret sat on a folding chair and watched the debate on her granddaughter's old iPad, propped against a water bottle on a plastic table. She had lost her home on January 8th. She had been in the trailer for 11 months. It smelled like new plastic and old smoke. And the lavender air freshener her granddaughter had hung from the ceiling vent 3 months ago, that had long since stopped working. She did not care about the French Laundry. She did not care about high-speed rail. She did not care about Panera Gate, or Dana Williamson's Chanel bag, or who Gavin Newsom had slept with in 2007. She cared about one thing. Whether anybody in that building in Atlanta, the president, the governor, the moderator, the 800 people in the audience, was going to help her rebuild her house. She watched Trump's face during the 11 seconds. She watched Newsom's face during the 11 seconds. She could not tell who was going to help her. She could not tell if either of them would. She turned off the iPad. She pulled the thin FEMA blanket up to her chin. She went to sleep. Tomorrow was Friday. She had a meeting with an insurance adjuster at 9:30, the same insurance adjuster who had told her last month that her claim was under review. It had been under review for 10 months. The Georgia World Congress Center was 2,100 miles away. It might as well have been on the moon. Within 48 hours, the overnight tracking polls confirmed what everyone in the room had felt. Trump's favorability had risen 4 points nationally. Newsom's 2028 presidential primary polling, which had been steady at 23% among likely Democratic voters, dropped to 14. It would recover to 17 over the following month. The other 6 points never came back. The French Laundry Governor clip was viewed 112 million times in the first week. Late-night hosts played it on 3 consecutive nights. Saturday Night Live opened their next episode with a cold open, featuring the 11 seconds of silence, in which the actor playing Newsom stood frozen at a podium for the full 11 seconds, while the actor playing Trump ate a cheeseburger in real time. It was the most watched SNL cold open since Alec Baldwin's original Trump impression in 2016. Within a week, the White House formally proposed the audit condition for California fire aid. Newsom called it political extortion on CNN and MSNBC. Within a month, 3 Democratic members of Congress from California, all representing swing districts, publicly supported the audit. The people of California deserve to know where $37 billion went, one of them said. Newsom agreed to the audit in November, after the California state legislature passed a bipartisan resolution supporting it. The GAO audit began in December. The preliminary findings released in February confirmed what the Alvarez and Marshall audit had already found: inadequate data systems, disjointed services, and approximately $12.6 billion in expenditures that could not be traced to individuals originally residing in California. The fire aid package was approved in March. At 60% of the original request, $24 billion, not $40. The $16 billion in reductions were directly tied to the audit findings. Gavin Newsom never formally announced a 2028 presidential campaign. He never formally ruled one out, but every pollster who studied the race for the Democratic nomination agreed on one thing. The race ended on a Thursday night in Atlanta, 11 seconds before the governor of California found his voice. By then, it was too late. Donald Trump's only public comment on the debate came 3 days later, in a Truth Social post at 6:14 inches the morning. Just watch the debate highlights again. Gavin looked very handsome as usual, great suit, beautiful hair. But as a president? No. Not going to happen. The French Laundry governor should stay in California and fix his train. Maybe take it to Bakersfield, if it ever moves. Sad. It received 4.7 million likes. It was the most liked Truth Social post of the year. If you made it this far, thank you. Every fact in this video is on the public record. The French Laundry dinner of November 6, 2020. Confirmed by the Sacramento Bee, Fox News, CNN, and Governor Newsom himself, who called it a bad mistake. The private school attendance, confirmed by multiple outlets. The Alex Turk affair, confirmed by Newsom on live television in 2007. The Dana Williamson indictment, 23 counts. November 2025, federal court. The $37 billion in homelessness spending. California state budget documents. The Alvarez and Marshall audit. March 2025. The high-speed rail cost escalation. Publicly reported by every major California news outlet. Panera Gate. Reported by Politico. The 7 high-risk state agencies California State Auditor. All of it. 5 minutes. A phone. Any American. 3 things before you go. 1. Hit that like button. YouTube shows this to more Americans when you do. And the more Americans who watch a president hold a governor accountable on a debate stage, the more governors who will think twice before eating $3, $5, $0 dinners with lobbyists while their people are locked in their homes. 2. Comment the words French Laundry Governor below. FRENCH space LAUNDRY space GOVERNOR, because after tonight, those 3 words don't describe a restaurant in Napa Valley. They describe the most expensive political mistake in the history of California. I read every comment. Top comments get pinned. 3. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week, another stage, another politician, another truth that has been sitting in plain sight, waiting for somebody with a microphone, and no fear to say it out loud. God bless Margaret in her FEMA trailer in Pacific Palisades. God bless every Californian who lost their home, while their governor dined with lobbyists and their children attended Zoom school from a kitchen table. God bless every taxpayer in every state. Who has ever looked at a government spending number and thought, where did the money go? The debate is over. The French Laundry Governor has a new nickname, and the man who gave it to him, he went backstage. He ate a cheeseburger, and he told his chief of staff to call the governor's office in the morning, because that's what builders do. They break things down, and then they build them back up, but only after they've reread the invoice. The invoice, Governor Newsom, is $37 billion, and nobody can find the receipts. When a political system allows billions to vanish into thin air while citizens lose their homes and futures, we must ask ourselves, are we electing leaders to solve our crises, or are we just funding their private dinners?